Hello. In this video I'll be renovating a mahogany desk that's reminiscent in style to the utility furniture produced in the UK during and following the Second World War. The design of utility furniture was influenced by the simplicity of the arts and crafts furniture, and after being discontinued in 1948, it continued to influence design well into the 1960s, and because of this, the table is difficult to date. I did a quick test on the finish and found that it came off very easily with a carbide scraper. So I set about the task, happy in the knowledge that I wouldn't have to deal with paint stripper. The front legs were a little wobbly, so I decided to take the top off to make some repairs. It also meant that scraping the top would be easier with it on the workbench. There was a large ink stain right in the centre of the top, but the initial scraping failed to make much of an impression on it, so I carried on with the rest of the top whilst trying to come up with a cunning plan. The plan turned out to be a lot simpler than I thought. I used 120 grit paper on my random orbit sander, and it removed nearly all of the stain. I then moved up to 180 grit paper and scribbled some pencil lines onto the tabletop. It's a simple trick, but once the lines have all gone, you can be sure that the surface is flat. With all the marks gone, I switched to a sanding block to ensure that no swirl marks were left on the top, and to sand the chamfer and edges. Although the joints on the front of the frame were loose, they were difficult to get apart. So I decided to use the spreader feature on some of my clamps by switching the clamp head around. As you can see, when I tapped the joints they came apart very easily. It was obvious that all of the glue had perished over time, and it was necessary to re-glue them. It's important to remove all the original glue and scrape it off back to the wood. If you don't do this, the joint is likely to fail again in time. I used a paintbrush to apply glue to both the mortises and tenons, and then inserted the first crosspiece into the frame. This was then clamped into position with a sash clamp. I decided to spare you the pain of watching several hours of scraping and sanding. So we take up the story with me applying the first coat of Gilboy's wax oil to the frame. As you can see, the wood was very dry and immediately soaked up the wax oil. It was obvious that it was going to need a couple of coats to get an even coverage. If you like the content on the channel, could I please ask you to take a moment to like, subscribe and hit the notifications bell. It's encouraging for me, and it also nudges YouTube to push the videos out to a new audience. Thanks. Once the first coat of wax oil was dry, and to be honest it didn't take very long, I denibbed everything with a fine abrasive pad and applied a second coat. You can tell that we're on the home stretch now, as I apply a coat of Gilboy's wax to everything with a pad of 4/0 steel wool. With everything waxed and buffed, it was time to reassemble the table and see what I've managed to achieve. I hope that you enjoyed it and that you'll find time to come back for the next one. Thanks.